Herzlich willkommen, Carlos Irthate. A very warm welcome to all of you. Solidarity with Lesvos is the headline of this event today. My name is Sabine Müller-Langsdorff. I'm working as peace pastor of the Protestant Church in Hessen-Nassau. Our church supported Lesvos Solidarity for many years. So it is a pleasure that Mrs. Efi Latsoudi, one of the speakers of Lesbos Solidarity, is with us today. Maybe, Efi, you can stand up so the audience can see you. Thank you. Efi, we tried to get one of the most beautiful rooms in Frankfurt to honor you for receiving the Women's Rebel Peace Award of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, WILPF. Thank you, WILPF, for stop here as part of the awardees' journey through Germany. Welcome the audience in the room and also welcome the audience via video stream. Our event will take place for 1.5 hours and we will speak all inputs in English language, so Efi and our guests can understand, and we can understand each other in the middle of no knowledge or knowledge in the language. And we will follow one topic Mrs. Latsoudi suggested for us. Criminalization of solidarity is the topic of the evening. Before Efi will give an input, 2 other women will bring greetings. I am really happy that Mrs. Eskandari Grünberg is with us today. She's the freshly nominated mayor of Frankfurt. Congratulations. And she is heading the Department of Diversity, Anti-Racism and Social Cohesion. So, Mrs. Eskandari Grünberg, thank you for your greeting.
Meine sehr verehrte Frau Langsdorff, sehr verehrte Frau Latsoudi. Ich freue mich sehr, heute Abend hier zu sein. Dieses wunderbare Haus in Frankfurt, das ist mittlerweile ein Markenzeichen geworden. Und ich glaube, das lässt sich zeigen. Und die verschiedenen Ereignisse, die hier passieren, das zeigt, wie stark diese Akademie und wie das wirklich stark zu unserer Stadt gehört. Daher, Sie sind ein richtiger Ort hier. Daher freue ich mich sehr, Sie hier herzlich zu begrüßen. Auch natürlich die Gäste hier.
All right, I will be translating, so please just speak a little bit slower.
Okay, slower, okay.
So, very warm greetings to everyone, first of all. And the mayor also said this is a really special place and a really strong place that shows the commitment and the strength of this community and this room also.
Thank you very much. Ja, wir wissen alle, und die Bilder können wir alle nicht vergessen, was vor kurzem in Afghanistan passiert ist. Wir können alle nicht vergessen, wie die Frauen und Männer hinter diese Flugzeuge gerannt sind, ihre Leib und Seele zu retten. Das lässt uns nicht kalt.
We can all not forget the pictures that we saw in the last weeks coming from Afghanistan. We cannot forget the pictures where people were rushing to the airport, trying to get out of the place, of where men and women tried to flee. These pictures are still in our minds.
Die geflüchteten Menschen, das erleben wir auch hier in der Evangelischen Akademie und wir sehen das auch, dass diese Menschen, was ich häufig immer wieder erwähne, nicht freiwillig ihr Land verlassen. Die Menschen verlassen ihr Land, weil die keine andere Möglichkeit haben. Aus politischen, wirtschaftlichen, aber auch aus humanitären Gründen müssen ihr Land verlassen.
An important point is to state that people are not leaving their places voluntarily. It's that they have no other opportunity for several reasons, which is either political, economic, or
economic, political, and then
and
well,
humanitarian
humanitarian.
issues.
Yeah. And we know, you did it in English. Okay. Und wir wissen eigentlich, was in 2015 passierte, wo viele Menschen ihre Heimat verlassen hatten. Hier in diesem Lande von den rechten Parteien hieß, das darf sich nicht wiederholen. Gestatten Sie mir diese Aussage andersrum heute Abend darzustellen und zu interpretieren.
We all know what happened in 2015, and now what far-right parties are actually saying is that this cannot be repeated, but we need to rephrase this sentence now, this evening, tonight.
Aus meiner Sicht, sehr verehrte Gäste, meine verehrte Preisträgerin, das darf sich nie wiederholen, was wir in 2015 erlebt hatten. 3.500 Menschen wurden halt wirklich ertrunken. In 2016, die waren über 5.000 Menschen. Das darf sich nie wieder in der Form wiederholen.
So yes, it can never be repeated, and we should never let this happen again, that only in 2015, 3,500 people died, and in 2016, actually 5,000 people died.
Der Fakt ist, auch viele, die hier geflohen sind, hier angekommen sind, trotzdem, mehrere von denen heute Morgen sogar in meinem Beruf erlebte eine von den Geflüchteten, die seit Jahren immer noch auf ihr Aufenthaltserlaubnis warten, immer noch in Flüchtlingsunterkünfte unter schwieriger Lage leben. Wir dürfen diese Menschen nicht allein lassen. Wir dürfen auch nicht vergessen, dass das Flucht schwere Trauma, schwere Belastung für viele Menschen bedeutet, dass sie ihre Heimat verlassen.
And also this is impacting us every day, that people that have arrived here in Germany that are still living in refugee shelters, their situations and their legal status is still critical. It's still impacting their lives every day, and we cannot let this happen again. And we have also to consider traumas and really hard situations they face, which haven't been addressed, and people are still struggling very much.
Liebe Frau Latsoudi, Sie haben sich auch gerade für diese Menschen eingesetzt. Sie haben mit Ihren Kampagnen, Sie haben geschafft, seit 2012, dass Sie mit Ihrem Pickbar-Camp diese Menschen zu unterstützen. Sie haben sich eingesetzt, gerade für die Menschen, die vielleicht keine Sprachrohr haben. Sie haben sich für diese Menschen eingesetzt, die vielleicht die letzte Möglichkeit, die vielleicht nach Europa oder woanders fliehen können, einen Halt zu bekommen. Und dafür kann ich Ihnen sagen, ganz herzlichen Dank dafür. Auch hier in der Stadt Frankfurt, die Stadt der Paulskirche, kann ich Ihnen von Herzen im Namen der Stadt ganz herzlichen Dank sagen.
Dear Efi Latsoudi, you have been the one supporting these people, giving these people a voice when they did not have one. You're still struggling to support people that have no other choice in their lives right now, and you're still helping them every day. So from the city of Frankfurt, I'm speaking of, in the name of thank you very, very much for your support, for your work every day.
Wir dürfen dieses Engagement nicht nur würdigen, sondern auch unterstützen. Ich weiß, unter ganz schweren Bedingungen. Die Rechte in Europa für die Geflüchteten ist nicht so einfach. Viele Menschen in Lesbos und anderen wirklich Grenzen unter ganz, ganz schwierigen Bedingungen leben. Daher kann ich Ihnen hier und heute versprechen, wir werden diese Menschen nicht vergessen und auch unsere Unterstützung können Sie auch heute Abend damit rechnen. Vielleicht dann eine nochmal Übersetzung.
We should not only thank you for your support and think about those people, but we have to actively support the efforts to help people who are fleeing. And in the name of the city, I'm offering, or I'm expressing my deep support.
Vielleicht eine gute Nachricht. Wir haben eine neue Koalition. Sie haben mir gesagt, ich bin frisch gebackene Bürgermeisterin hier. Und ich kann Ihnen versprechen, ich habe sehr viel in der Koalition dafür gekämpft, dass wir sicherer Hafen werden, dass wir auch die Geflüchteten aufnehmen. Das war nicht leicht mit unterschiedlichen Koalitionspartnern. Daher die gute Nachricht mit Ihrem Preis heute Abend bedeutet, wir werden uns mal einsetzen, dass Frankfurt mehr Geflüchtete aufnimmt. Vorgestern hatte ich die Ehre gehabt, mit der Ministerin Grütters nochmal mit den Künstlern einen offenen Brief rüberbringen. Und sie hat heute mir zugesichert, dass die einige Frauen, die in Afghanistan Künstlerinnen und Künstler sind, wir werden die aufnehmen. Und ich glaube, da gehört auch zu dieser Preisverleihung, da ist auch eine gute Nachricht.
So there's some good news that the newly elected mayor wants to say. There's a new coalition in the city, and she has been fighting, and they together have been fighting for Frankfurt to become a safe haven, to support refugees and to take on more people, and especially now to support Afghani women that have artists women, to help bringing them here. So this is something that can be announced today.
Anita Augsburg Preis is for you. Congratulations. We are proud of you. Thank you so much. I think it's a good sign for our city. It's a good sign for the women. It's a good sign for the people. They are, they give us to make us brave and to make us, to give a new movement to move something. And I think the people, they need us. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that do it. In the name of Frankfurt, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Eskandari Grünberg, and it's also a good sign for a new female mayor to have you here in our midst. Now I say a very warm welcome to Marike Fröhlich. She is the vice chairwoman of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and she will bring a second greeting.
Just could I interrupt you just for 1 second? I'm so sorry. Ich muss leider mich verabschieden. Heute Abend ist Yom Kippur, das ist österreichischer Feiertag. Ich musste wirklich bei meinem Mann ziemlich ein gutes Wort eigentlich, dass ich heute Abend später komme. Daher entschuldigen Sie mich tausendmal, dass ich dann einfach wegen diesem österreichischen Feiertag, mir war wichtig dabei zu sein. Daher muss ich leider jetzt spätestens weggehen, aber ich wünsche Ihnen viel Kraft auch für diese Veranstaltung. Ganz herzlichen Dank für die Einladung. Danke und wir machen weiter. Vielen Dank.
Thank you. Also, thank you to the mayor. It was an honor to have you here for this event. I'm speaking today in the name of the German section of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and it's an honor to do so. We are very excited to have Efi Latsoudi this year as our awardee of the Rebels Against War Anita Augsburg Preis. And thank you, Efi, so much for going to so many events and working so closely with us. It's been an honor to have you around. The Anita Augsburg Prize is awarded by the German section of WILPF every 2 years to outstanding women who courageously work for peace, freedom, and justice in their societies. The name of the award is, of course, no coincidence, but rather a crucial aspect of its meaning, for which Efi and her work are an especially timely example. Anita Augsburg, after whom the prize is named, was a true rebel, not only against war and militarization, but also against arbitrary societal restrictions, discrimination, and injustices. She did not bend to social norms, but lived her life freely and with with a strong, for her time, definitely somewhat utopian vision for solidarity, justice, peace, and equality. As an internationalist, she was particularly engaged in building and strengthening international networks for peace. Thus, together with other women from around the globe, Anita Augsburg was one of our co-founders who founded WILPF in 1915. So today, WILPF is the oldest women's peace organization worldwide and continues the quest for peace, for feminist peace with 45 national sections and groups around the globe. So solidarity is a basic value of our organization from the beginning. Anita Augsburg already fought for societal transformation in a feminist sense in the late 19th century. And with this award, we honor her legacy and aim to carry it forward into the future. Efi Latsoudi, as this year's recipient, and as a true rebel for peace, carries her legacy on as well. In previous years, the prize was awarded to Rasha Jarhun from Yemen, Gulnara Shahinain from Armenia, and Zaina Erhaim from Syria. The Rebels Against War Prize aims to honor the commitment and achievement of awardees, as well as support their particularly impressive and courageous work for peace and freedom, foster and especially also strengthen the networks for solidarity and among activists, as well as contribute to the visibility of their work. At the same time, the choice of the award is also a political statement, or made at least with some political stance in mind, and aims to highlight crucial contemporary political issues. This year's choice was made in view of and as a strong stance against the increasing normalization of both verbal and physical violence against people seeking refuge and safety from war, persecution, environmental destruction, or global inequality. And at the same time, also against the breach of basic human rights in national and European refugee policy. And Efi's tireless political activism stands as a stark contrast to these breaches. Her work for a just and humane refugee policy and the coherent and consistent compliance with human rights within it show that a different, and for some would even say utopian way of doing solidarity and refugee policy. Efi is thus an especially honorable and timely recipient of the award, as she and her team have shown that peaceful living together between local residents and refugees is not only possible, but enriches the lives of those involved as well as the host society in general, and that it fosters strong bonds of solidarity and thus peace. Instead of more police, more military, more security forces to ensure the safety, but actually create division and often perpetrate violence, and also partly criminalize solidarity, as we'll discuss later. Instead of this, we need more community and more solidarity and international bonds to foster peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this greeting and also for all you organized for this trip through different towns and cities in Germany to support solidarity with Lesbos. And now, dear audience, the floor is open for the prize winner, Efi Latsoudi. She brought for us a video, and I think we will watch this video at first, so we will come in a good mood for her talk. First, the video, please.
package on migration and asylum, which we present today, offers a fresh start. The Commission is now working on a plan for joint pilot with the Greek authorities for a new camp on Lesbos.
In Lesbos, we need to create a model camp in cooperation with the local communities.
This is a new, fresh beginning.
We will take a human and humane approach.
Δεν μίλησα ποτέ για ολιγοήμερη παραμονή. Αντιθέτως είπα ότι η ολιγοήμερη παραμονή δημιουργεί πρόβλημα πολύ αυξημένων ροών, δημιουργεί λάθος μήνυμα στους λαθροδιακινητές.
To live in Europe in this open society of values and diversity.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this invitation in this very beautiful place. And I'm honored to be among people that, first of all, are friends, are people that are fighting since many years for the European border policies to be more humane and to protect human rights. It's an honor to get an award that is really bringing us back to the basic question about resistance and peace. And this is the question that is hiding under all this work that we are trying to do since many years. So I came here after so many days meeting people and talking about the situation in Lesvos, mostly with questions and mostly with the need to hear from you as well what can be done in this situation. But I will try to describe a little bit and put the framework of what is happening now and giving also a perspective of the 15 years that at least I am involved in the solidarity work in Lesbos. So when we talk about criminalization of solidarity, we talk, and this picture came to my mind after a discussion we had today with Brazil. What comes to my mind is this black screen, like no picture. So what is happening today on the island is not that we have better conditions, it's not that we have the humane Europe that Mrs. von der Leyen is very proud of, is that we have no pictures, that the refugees cannot talk about what is happening because they feel threatened, because there are huge forces of the police inside the camp, and because the NGOs, the civil society, are forced not to take any picture or any statement out. So there is a very, very clear line. Either you work in the camp and you do the work for the state to support the people, or you're outside. When you are inside, that means that you cannot denounce the conditions, and that's very serious. At the same time, in Lesvos, that is the place of solidarity, a place that made us proud in 2015 with all these pictures, and reversed the narrative that refugees are a threat. At this point, we were all very proud to be part of this solidarity network. We were in the shore of Lesbos supporting the people. We were in decent camps that are not existing anymore, like Pikpa. And we proved that it is possible in a real humanitarian crisis, because what we are facing now, it's not a humanitarian crisis, it's a political crisis. So, having this picture before 2015 and after, I must tell you that what I try to highlight and try to bring to the discourse is that we are not facing a new policy. We are facing the coming back of a long-term deterrence policy implemented on the islands and in Greece, not only on the islands. So, what happened when I first was involved in refugee solidarity movement and in human rights defense movement on the island, I realized that there were deaths of people and we knew nothing about these people. There are missing people that nobody taking care of them already, back in 2001, 2005. There was a huge detention place that nobody was visiting. Even Red Cross didn't have access to this detention place. And when we first criminalization and marginalization of solidarity, we didn't have access as a local group in this camp. But when Brazil was visiting, we managed with the German organization to visit the camp. And that was the first time that I couldn't believe the stories of people who came to us, and they were talking about multiple pushbacks, not once, and violent pushbacks. That was one camp, Pagani. Then in 2012, when we started to deal with the refugees from Syria, we have the detention place of the police. It's a place for 20-25 people, closed, and there you could see 80-100 refugees, pregnant women, children, minors, all together. No group was allowed in. We tried to approach with the church in Mytilene, bringing food so we can see the conditions, we can see the people. And it was horrible. At this point, there is a solidarity movement in Lesvos, and the solidarity movement, for me, and it is important, it is connected with the rise of Golden Dawn, and that was so powerful, with the fascist party that first time was in the parliament. And it was really striking why this party was in the parliament, because for Greek political situation, it's very strange, such an extreme party to be in the parliament, but the refugee policies of the previous years, the people who were in limbo in the streets, in the squares, hiding in Lesvos and in Athens, till the moment that they could fly or disappear in another European country, they gave the power to this political party, together, of course, with the austerity measures and all the situation in Greece. So at this point, when we create the solidarity movement and we ask for a decent place of solidarity, which was Pikpa camp, it seemed like utopian. We were asking for something that never had happened in Greece before. Only the police can deal with the refugees and so on, because they are criminals. Because they were presented in the press as illegal migrants. And all of us were like, okay, maybe it's normal, such illegal people to be treated by the police. And that's the thing with the public opinion in Greece. People are reading in the news that illegal migrants are arrested, are detained. For many people that makes sense, because you cannot see them as well. They didn't have a face. So we have a solidarity place back then. And a solidarity place that gave a lot of solutions in very difficult moments, like people sleeping in the streets of Mytilene, people sleeping in the port. In summertime, when we have tourists, the people were suffering, the locals were suffering because they were losing the tourism. So it was a solution, a humane solution, and I saw with my eyes how the public discourse changed, because in 2012, during crisis, people were saying, why are they coming? We have a crisis. They don't know that. Let's say that they had a choice. And then when the people were starting, bringing food, bringing clothes, this narrative changed. And people were feeling proud to be part of this miracle. And in 2013, Moria camp started as a place for 100 people. It was a military place, some containers, maximum capacity 100 people. At the same time, we have the reception service, which starts in Greece, and it's an independent service, independent from the police, because before everything was police. And we have the asylum service, which starts in Greece in 2013. So we go from 2013. We don't have so many asylum applications. Mostly the people that they couldn't travel to another country, they applied for asylum, or people that they wanted to avoid detention. Because either you apply for asylum in Greece or you are in detention and deported. So in this, Moria is the place that maximum capacity is 100, and the locals are very worried to overcome this capacity. So every time that Moria had 300 and 400, they were in Pikpa. They were sent to Pikpa, and the people were treated there by the locals. And in 2015, we have a reverse of this story. We have the people who are in the streets, supporting people, very proud of it. And this reversed again in 2016 when we have the EU-Turkey deal. So with the EU-Turkey deal, and this was a very good connection, we have we diverse, somehow deviate the asylum right, and we do legal pushbacks. That's how it's a good way to approach this. And there started again to the criminalization of solidarity, the accusations against sea rescue teams in Lesvos. We had some trials of people. And where we are now, we are in a point that we face the situation of March 2020, the attacks to solidarity people, to refugees, to NGOs. There is a generalized narrative from the government, first, and that the refugees are a national threat, that we are protecting our borders, and on the other hand, that NGOs are connected to corruption and to smuggling, which is very dangerous, as you understand. On the other hand, we have a camp like Moria that is growing during the COVID time. When the government was elected in 2019, the new government and the new local authorities, we had more or less 5,000 people. And in March 2020, we have 22,000 in COVID time, and with all the restrictions of movement. And we have the fire of Moria. And the fire of Moria gave an end to a camp that everybody knew that it was a cemetery for human rights, but nobody took the decision to stop this. So we were expecting that something better will be created, and what was created, it was horrible. It was a shooting place used for thousands of people with huge forces of the police present. And at the same time, the announcement of closure of all decent camps. Pikpa camp, Old Karatepe, the camp, the Pikpa of Leros, etc. So, where we are now, we are in a point in Lesbos that we are talking about a huge violation of human rights happening and silence that is trying to be imposed by the government and by the authorities. And the new camp that you saw, the development on the mountain, with huge resources of EU. At the same time, we have again people that are invisible in the streets of Athens, in the mainland. People that are desperate, no system of protection is in place, no integration, no access to medical care, and whatever was created the last years for supporting refugees is not there anymore. So this means secondary movement. This means that for these people, the only hope is to move to another country. But they arrive in Germany, they arrive in other countries totally damaged, having suffered all this insecurity, violation of their rights, undignified condition, and they arrive in a situation that you need much more time, and we need much more time to support them and to give them back their power and to heal their traumas that are accumulating. So it's a big, it's very important, especially because of the Afghani situation, to go back to a discussion about human rights and about solidarity as a value of Europe that we have to protect and we have to stick on it, and about a fair system and justice in Greece. Because what is happening now, even if we have, and it's very important that there is a relocation program to Europe, but we need to have a system in place in Greece. Otherwise, people are suffering for no reason. And with the people, the local society and the people in Greece, they are also suffering, and the extreme right and racism and xenophobia is rising. So we have to take a stand, and we need to see the situation in Afghanistan as an opportunity, not as a crisis, to decide that we need to create now safe passages, and we need to go back to humane solution and solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this impressive description, and also for points of ways of hope, at least. Not easy in this situation. Well, we asked 4 people to give a response to Efi's input about criminalization of solidarity. Mrs. Anja Harzke, she is a pastor and she belongs to the board of the association Gekommen, Church and Refuge. And she will describe a little bit the situation in Germany of the work of Church Asylum and also steps of, well, escalation in discrediting solidarity in this work. Anja.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about Church Asylum, and it's a great pleasure to meet you. Kirchenasyl, Church Asylum, is a movement inspired by the sanctuary movement in the United States of America. It began in the early 1980s to provide safe haven for Central American refugees fleeing civil conflict. It is in fact a very old idea you find in almost every culture already in ancient times, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. A person in danger who flees finds a hiding place in a holy sphere, a sanctuary. Near the altar, there is a protective space, a refuge, and no one is allowed to grab this man or woman. The person is safe there. The churches followed this idea through centuries, reclaiming Jesus' message of love your neighbor and help and welcome the stranger. But it is, of course, no legal instrument, no law. The Church Asylum movement in Germany started in 1983 when Kemal Altun, a Turkish asylum seeker, had his trial in court, in a courtroom in Berlin, about his deportation back to Turkey. He jumped out of the window and committed suicide. In his eyes, this was better than being deported to military state Turkey. After this tragical event, the congregations and churches were shocked and opened their doors in Berlin for refugees from Palestine, declaring to protect them from deportation. And a lot of congregations followed all over Germany. In 1984, the Ecumenical Working Group was founded, and 1993, then the nationwide church asylum network, the Bundesarbeitsgemeinschaft, Asyl in der Kirche, Church Asylum. 2015, just so that you get a number, in 2015 there were 620 church asylums all over Germany, a quarter of them children. 2021, right now, we have 316 churches, church asylums with 222 people, and among them 111 children. Most church asylums are so-called Dublin church asylums. When offering church asylum, we take advantage of the deportation deadline within the Dublin system. Most refugees we take into church asylum are in danger not to be deported to their countries of origin, but within the EU, as most of you know, of course. As you all know, refugees have to seek asylum in the state where they first enter the EU. When they choose to move on and the state where they come to wants to deport them back, they can only be deported in the first 6 months of a legal stay. So the decisive question concerning church asylum is whether it is legal. It's all about these questions. Since the 80s, it has generally been accepted as being just that, legal, because as soon as a person moves into a church, all the authorities are being informed. This is part of the deal. So what people in church asylum do is they outwait the deportation deadline. Then they go back into the system and have a chance to ask for political asylum in Germany. The refugees we take into church asylum have to fulfill certain criteria. There has to be an immediate threat of deportation. There must be a serious threat of them suffering serious physical or psychological harm in the country where they are to be sent to, and they should have a good chance of being granted a permanent resident permit in Germany. And during the time in church asylum, people live on church property in the church, and the church provides for their needs. So we need human and financial resources. Church asylum is necessary because the Dublin system is inhuman. It's unfair and, moreover, a complete failure. The wealthy states like Germany and France try to put all the responsibility on the Mediterranean states like Italy or Greece. Some EU countries simply refuse to take in any refugee at all. People are treated like cargo, being sent here and there against their will and without a say in their own destinies. And Dublin simply does not fulfill the goal of creating a unified European asylum process. It's not like Mrs. von der Leyen said. So we offer church asylum to help a few refugees where the system would create special hardships to escape deportation. We unfortunately cannot help as many people as we want to and as we would like to. There are never enough places, never enough churches and congregation places for all requests. Political reactions. Church asylum is or was mostly respected by politics. Theoretically, the authorities could send in the police to forcefully arrest our guests because they know exactly where they are staying. There is no legal base, no law that regulates it. It is a matter of respect for an old church tradition by a state that still defines itself in many ways by its Christian traditions. This arrangement between church and state changed, and in the last years, criminal proceedings and trials started more and more against pastors, against nuns, or church board members, against monks from monasteries. Impressive for me were the protests against the verdict against an older pastor. This pastor was sentenced to pay a fee only. The couple, both pastors in the Allgäu area in Immenstadt, took a young Afghani man into their church. The young man started a professional training, Ausbildung in German. He was fluent in German. He belongs to the minority of the Hazara. There is not a good life in Afghanistan belonging to this minority. A lot of people helped them and wanted him to stay. They started a petition for the right to stay, but there was no chance. The state still wanted to send him back to Afghanistan, and after all this time, living in Germany, after 14 months in church asylum, he then went underground. We just hope he finds his way, perhaps in another country in the EU, said this pastor. Most of the verdicts now, since 2 or 3 years, are in the state of Bavaria, and almost all of them were dropped. But some were sentenced to pay a fee or a fine, condemned and sentenced for helping refugees. In the majority of these verdicts, the fee is not very high. It's not a big thing for a German Bürger, but the most cases are closed. But all these trials, they have an impact on the people. People who want to be in solidarity with refugees and want to help are intimidated. The church asylum is criminalized. They are criminalized. The people are anxious. They don't want to be something, they don't want to do something illegal. So people in congregations and churches go back and say, oh no, that's too hot. We don't want to do that. We have fear. One of our major parties even calls itself the Christian Democrats. That didn't stop politics from trying to put as many obstacles as possible in our way. The main government agency responsible for refugees and asylum seekers, the BAMF, for the last 1.5 years has started to consider church asylum as an illegal stay, thus extending the deportation deadlines for 18 months. Churches all over the country contested this in the courts, and we won. They won the vast majority of these court cases. Still, it prolonged the time people had to stay in the church asylums. because we had to wait for the court's decisions, and they had to endure all the anxieties and the uncertainties that come with it, being in this church and have to wait. They just couldn't get on with their lives. Only after a prolonged struggle, the federal agency changed its course, a great victory for the movement, again back to 6 months. The main criticism is that we are supposedly putting our church asylum above the law. In 2015, our then interior minister from the Christian Democratic Party compared it to the Sharia because it's our own law. He criticized that the movement had gotten out of hand and that there simply were too many cases. In 2015, roughly 1,000 refugees found asylum in the 620 churches, I just mentioned it. We argue that the law is not about law and order, but that it is there to protect human rights, which would be violated in cases of deportation. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? As Macom, a small network, a loosely tied-in network in the state of Hessen, we connect and try to support congregations who give church asylum with a lot of others, like the diaconie and all the people who engage them, supported and also supported by our churches and our church leaders. We are lucky to live in a democratic and wealthy country. We could as easily have been born in a dictatorship torn by civil war. It could be us, and not so long ago it was. Our motto is Jesus saying, I was a stranger and you invited me in. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least, well, these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. One thing it is good to see every time. For almost all the congregations who welcomed people in church asylum, it came true that sharing makes us richer and not poorer. Thank you.
Thank you for this impressive description of small steps of, destroy solidarity in small ways and what it makes with people. Thank you very much, Anja. It's good to have another example now because Jana Freudenberger is with us. She is a peace worker of the Catholic Peace Association Pax Christi. Pax Christi started the campaign Human Rights Instead of Moria, facing the federal elections in Germany next weeks. That is a way to oppose on a political and activist way and level against criminalization of solidarity. So please, Anja, come and describe your campaign.
Good evening. Well, thank you for the invitation. I think I'm really happy to be here, even though a lot of things we heard and already saw today are rather sad and frustrating. I'm happy because I think it's really crucial to build closer networks between the many organizations who work on asylum, refugees, migration, and human rights. This is also, as Sabine Müller-Langsdorff already said, I work for the Catholic peace organization called Pax Christi. And last year, in summer 2020, when the situation on the Greek islands worsened again, we decided that we needed to do something against that and against these horrible human rights violations, also from a Christian or church and Catholic point of view. So we started bringing together about 30 member organizations and initiated a campaign called Menschenrecht statt Moria, which would be human rights instead of Moria. And Moria, of course, not only as the camp, but as a system and as a symbol for the current EU border politics. The campaign calls for an immediate relocation of refugees from Greece to Germany, and also for an end of illegal pushbacks and all the other human rights violations on EU borders. Even though it is a rather small campaign, I think it can be a good example for how people can get involved and actively do something against these human rights violations. At the moment, we focus on the German parliament, and right now also on German federal elections, as you already said. The aim is to achieve a cross-party alliance or appeal in parliament, calling on the government to stand for a human rights-based approach, also towards other EU countries. And in order to achieve this aim, our method is basically that many local organizations, also very small groups, church congregations, they all contact their local representative, member of parliament, candidates at the moment, in order to increase the direct pressure, also in their city, and create a higher commitment. And what we saw is that, for instance, coming from Christian organizations, also CDU representatives, so like the conservative party with a C in their name, they at least listened to us. And around Christmas, they even, like some of them, not all, they even signed something like a cross-party appeal calling for more relocations. And therefore, I think that also from a strategic point of view, events like these are really important because I think it's really important to join forces and advocate on many different levels and from different sides in order to really achieve this common goal of an open Europe and an end of human rights violation and the right to asylum for everyone. I think this is basically what we all want. So this is what we do. Everyone who is interested can just contact us. I don't know whether you would show the website or whatever. Yeah, and I hope that maybe also after the elections, we don't know. We have a different situation. Let's see. Thank you, and thank you, Efi.
Thank you, Jana, for this empowering campaign. And well, what's up? What's up? What can we do? We have 3 chairs here, and to sum up, I like to welcome now Günther Burkhardt, Managing Director of Pro Asyl, and Doris Peschke. She's working for Diakonie Hessen, Department Refuge, Intercultural Work and Migration, to discuss with Efi. What's up? What's the challenge?
Günther, I think it is good if you start this round because you didn't have a chance yet.
It's no problem. The challenge is the same as in the year 2007, where it's the first time we have been in Lesbos. We had a great film. After this film, we don't have to speak. We saw everything, what happened and what will happen. And the micro doesn't work? No? It does work. Does?
Just
like this?
to...
Oh, okay. So I've been the first time in Lesbos 2007. I met you and others. And the challenge is now the same as 2007 to get access. yeah, when we went there, you told us we are not allowed to go in Pagani. Pagani has been a closed camp, a detention camp. We went inside with lawyers, a German group, and many refugees said, hey, what are you doing? Why are you writing, Günther? Why are you writing, Karl? Karl and I had been the first Germans who have been inside this camp. My wife has been inside the camp. She's been a nurse, and she spoke with the women and be more with the guys. And we wrote and wrote and wrote. Okay, and what happened? We had the first report about Greece. The truth may be bitter. And some years later, there had been stop of deportations from European countries to Greece. Okay, it's one success. And up to now, I think what you and your colleagues from Lesbos Solidarity, all groups in Greece are doing, is to writing down in a concrete way what happens to the refugees. And one of the greatest issues in Germany is what will happen with 28,000 persons who have been recognized in Greece, who are in Germany, and there's no solution. Because the German Bundesamt decides nothing. They wait, and they wait. And they waited in Greece for years, and the Greece solution in the last year, and this year has been the same as 15 years ago. Wait, and then, okay, you go, you have to leave Greece. The difference is they are recognized refugees. And now they are living here without any chance to leave the camps, to come in contact with the cities. And there is a great solidarity movement in Germany. And I think it's one theme, one topic we have to solve after the solutions. So that's where I remember when I see the blue door of Pagani and see you, and you are working 15 years, very, very tough with all the colleagues, new colleagues, younger colleagues, great. And there are differences now. And the difference is, in this time we had pushbacks. We went together to Turkey. There has been a documentation of us, of lawyers, of Greek lawyers, of Turkish lawyers, what happened in Turkey. This isn't possible. And now we have the situation that since June, Turkey is a safe third country for Greece. And this means concretely that there is no decision concerning the reasons why refugees fly. Nobody asks, why did you leave the country? And the new politics will be to send them back to Turkey, if Turkey agrees. This is a question of money, I think, in the next years. It's not the question if it's okay or not okay. And then we have no chance to come to Turkey, to look what is happening there. And this is a new difference. You did speak about invisible refugees. I speak about refugees, not migrants. It hasn't been the summer of migration. It has been the summer of the flight. And if persons are speaking about migration, they deny the Geneva Convention, they deny that persons who have rights, and this is a difference now concerning the speaking, also the speaking of the governments. And regarding the actual situation, Turkey, we don't know what happened, but we know that Afghans, who are in Greece, the greatest group, are not sure in Turkey. They live illegally. And we know that Turkey builds a wall to Iran, 300 kilometers, with European money. And now we look what's happening in Iran. 2 million Afghans are living there, illegal. And the frontier between Iran, Afghanistan is closed. So, and this is a difference to 2015. There will not be a movement of persons. They are trapped in Afghanistan, they are trapped in Iran, they are trapped in Turkey, and they're trapped now in the wonderful island where solidarity will become harder. If you ride with a car, I have been there in this desperate area because I didn't find the right way, so it's 1 hour. It's 1 hour from Mytilene to go there. And then you reach this camp and they say you, okay, go back to Mytilene, you have this paper to enter. No, you don't have the name of the refugee to enter. And this will happen and will continue. And therefore, I think it's important that you stay there. It's important that lawyers go inside. And it's important to make a documentation. And it's important that you make this problem visible. Yeah, that's it. And I think it's great what you are doing, what many other groups are doing. So I think it's a desperate situation, but we go on.
Thank you. Thank you. Efi, you have told us about the issues of increased invisibility and silence about refugees. And that has, I think, it has started with the Turkey deal. It has been enforced with the closing of the hotspots, as they like to call them, and with the increase of pushbacks also at the sea, so that people can no longer arrive on the islands. So you don't have any more people coming every day at the beaches, and you find the, you have your bags, I think, still from the material. Yes. With the boats. So this situation has changed. There are no longer as many refugees as well on the islands, if that is what we hear, if that is true. So you said last year it was 20,000. At the moment there are some thousands still?
More or less 4,000, and very few arrivals. As you said, the pushbacks are everyday pushbacks, are everyday systematic practice, and the islands have become a very militarized area. It's like a war zone.
And if we see this, the pushbacks, it means that people, individuals, have this experience of being pushed back violently, being forced into very dangerous situations at sea. So they are encountering fear. You have said that this is causing trauma. And what PICPA tried over the last years is particularly to address the situation of persons with huge vulnerabilities. And at the moment we see that more vulnerabilities are created.
This is a systematic, look, first of all, this trip, that's why we call this bag safe passage, because this trip is traumatizing anyway, it's frightening. We have heard the people, stories, even people that their life was not at risk, that they are really traumatized by the sea, by this feeling of night trip, very, very dangerous trip. And then we have people that they've been pushed back in the sea, which is very dangerous and very violent. And it has been connected, and it is connected to many shipwrecks, to be honest, but we don't have facts. We don't have really a clue, but we have heard many stories. We have heard, the politicians haven't heard the stories. And yes, vulnerability is a big issue, because in 2016, the whole policy to protect the people was focusing on vulnerability. And the fact that PICPA and other, not only in PICPA, but we started to advocate for vulnerability, it was a big step for Greek policies, because I have been in a situation of 2016 that women, children, pregnant women, victims, all of them, they were just detained. Minors, all of them, they are refugees. They shouldn't come. Sorry, they will suffer. This is the policy, and this is coming back. Now, vulnerability, again, no. 2016, we were fighting with this tool, vulnerability. But who is vulnerable? whoever stays in Moria camp 5 days, he becomes vulnerable. And actually we are producing vulnerability. This is known. The mental health issues went in 2016, and all the other rapes. I won't start now with this, and all the insecurity that damages the people completely. On the other hand, now there is no vulnerability. Sorry. All of them, they are not, to prove the vulnerability now has become very, very difficult. So, in order, for example, to prove that you are a victim of torture, you need to go to a public hospital. But public hospital has not tools to prove, to assess victim of torture situation. Doesn't matter. But for the refugees, they cannot prove it. So the government now, they are taking down all the tools of protection, and we leave the refugees with their fate, which is not very good. I mean, they should be in the corner. They should disappear, actually, but because this evaporate, probably, it's better. Yeah.
Günther, is there any way you see that this creation of vulnerability can be better addressed in Europe? Because we have this huge contradiction, I would say, of what is said in Brussels about rule of law and protection, and everything should be fine. And we now have a new pact. And a new start. We have heard the Greek commissioner saying we now have a new start. How on earth can we talk about a new start with a situation where we really damage people?
So it's hard to answer, because I think really everything is told about this video we showed us. The new fresh start is going back to the situation where persons who fly, who go to save their lives, are in a prison. And this is a future which will happen. And this is a future where I don't think what will happen in the next years, because there is a consensus that there should be a border procedure between the big parties in Germany. One say only registration, and then we have in a short term, look who needs asylum, who not, who can be sent back. Okay, but what does it mean? It means that you have arrivals. The persons who arrive are in a camp. It's a closed camp. It will be a closed camp for up to 18 months. This camp is far away from Mytilene or other cities. And then we have to ask, where are the lawyers? Where are the initiative groups who bring refugees in contact with the lawyer? Where are the courts? So it will function like in Russia. It's a democracy on the paper. Everything's fine. Everything is written. So, and I think what we are fighting now is not only a fight for refugees. We are fighting a fight for ourselves, for our democracy, for the rule of law, for human rights, and it's not only refugees, it's more than refugees. And to extend the topic to Germany, to vulnerable persons, we have been 2015 in October, November in Lesbos. And there have been more and more, not the young men, but women and children. Why have been this change? Because the German government said there will no longer be the chance for family reunification. And then there's been a change in the way which persons went to the dangerous way to the boats, and we had more women, we had more children, and we recognized it when we saw the deaf persons. Many children, many wives. Our colleague Mohammedi went with children who are dying to the hospital in Mytilene. Others, you did what you could. And we looked from here, and 3 years after this, the German government changed the law and said, if you are a refugee which is not recognized, so you have no chance that the wife and the children or the husband will reach Germany. So this we have to change after this election, and I'm hopeful that we will get some changes, but on the whole, to be honest, we have a strong solidarity movement in Germany, we have strong persons in Greece and all European countries, but there is no chief of a government who defends the right to demand asylum. Neither Merkel. She has been the architect of the EU-Turkey deal. And this goes on now, and we see now the new deal concerning this new pact on migration, how they call it. And what they want is that there is no more any chance to reach Europe to get asylum.
There is one politician, I think he deserves a prize too, Asselborn from Luxembourg. But everyone says Luxembourg, yeah, but they have more migrants and more refugees than, in percentage, than many other countries. So one should not take it too lightly, and I think
He's not the chief of the government. I spoke of the chiefs of the governments.
But his chief of government would let him say so. So in Luxembourg, I think he's prominent enough, I would say. So we have politicians, at least, who dare say that. We have some nuances, perhaps, also developing in some other countries. I'm hopeful for the new Norwegian government, perhaps, to change a little bit their policy again, so that the solidarity aspects come back into the political agenda. So this is perhaps a little bit of a sign of hope, but it is a very, very long way to go, because these narratives, as you have said, have been so turned upside down that what we talk about threat today is the refugees, while they are fleeing the threats in their country, which is no longer taken as a reason for them. And then they are told, yeah, but in this country you would be safe. Who says so? Who says so? What does safety mean in Iran? What does safety mean in Pakistan, where also the Taliban had been around? So how do we dare say you are safe in this or that place without really in-depth knowledge of the networks, the risks, the dangers for individuals, for minorities, for women? And now we create even places which are no longer safe in Europe by putting them all in a huge space in a camp where rapes happen, where suicides increase, where people are really getting desperate. So I think we have a lot in Europe to say we need to address that, we need to turn it back. And we had those trips of the people working with refugees to Greece, Italy, Serbia and Hungary. From Serbia we have also heard that what Europe does at the border to Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia damages people. And this damage to the people will have such lasting effect that we will take even much more time to rehabilitate, to restore, that people can be living a life of their own. So this damage will be extremely costly to European societies. And I think we need to talk about this.
And to human suffering? and also to the political situation, because our societies are very vulnerable also to racism and xenophobia. And these camps are not affecting only the lives of refugees, they are affecting our life, the life of the society, because treating people as criminals, as detainees, violating their rights, making them invisible, that affects us. And the reverse of narrative, what is legal, I was really touched by the way you presented the criminalization of solidarity here in a safe Germany. Reverse of narrative, like you feel you are illegal as we were illegal because we were supporting decently people in Pikpa, and not the government that they were torturing people in Moria, and all of them that they. It's the reverse of narrative. It is an enemy instead of a person in need, the person in the boat. The people in Lesvos, with all this political exploitation, I could say, and the hatred speech of the politicians, they attacked the boat. They were talking, they were insulting pregnant women and children in a boat in front of their eyes, and they were feeling proud for this. This is a reverse of narrative. We are talking about people, I mean, basic things. And also, what is safety? Is there safety in injustice when people's rights are violated? Is there safety when people are suffering and they suffer and they suffer violence? If there is injustice, there is no safety. It's clear. I mean, this is not something. It's easy to understand this, and we need to go to common sense.
Common sense, but also to talk about justice, as you have rightly said, because what we see is injustice, which we need to talk about. And Günther and you have both said that what we actually do is we work for our own legal system. We are the ones, in principle, protecting the rule of law because governments infringe the rule of law. So torture is illegal. It's against the Convention of Human Rights, which every country in Europe has signed up to. So we have a lot of work, and we had the image of a Europe with a human face, and I think that is still a guiding vision, at least, where we have to do a lot of groundwork still. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Efi. Thank you all on the panel or here on this desk. And thank you, audience, for listening, for being touched by the stories, and I hope also to be empowered by the stories. Thank you all organizations who supported this evening and organized it together. Thank you very much. I like to close, well, with words from a man who has known very well what's injustice and not peace, and how strong the vision of justice and peace is. So I will end with words from Martin Luther King. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Truth will make us free. Truth will make us free someday. And we'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. We will live in peace. We will live in peace. We will live in peace someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday. Thank you very much.